I've been through every emotion you can go through, you know, and I think I'm just left with a terrible sadness. You know, this man had so much potential. He could have cured cancer. He could have done so much good for humanity, and in fact, he became one of the world's worst monsters. We haven't even talked about my later books because I knew he didn't at 35 or 40 just suddenly say, I think I'll be a serial killer. So I knew there had to be earlier ones. And I've written two more books called The Early Years. And those books cover the 20s and the 30s. And they look at I put together, I thought it'd be one book, but it turns out that there were so many. Basically, he started as a teenager. I believe his first crime was basically he was almost 14. At 14 was his first crime, which was a priest in San Francisco that he shot. And I think basically he never stopped. So I'm at 50 years and about 50 crimes. And what's amazing is the early years crimes prove the later years crimes, and the later years crimes prove the early years crimes, because he's got a very similar MO of taunting and mailing. You know, this began at 14. At 14, on the priest murder, he sends taunting notes to the San Francisco Chronicle, and much of what he says in those tie into words that he says as Zodiac. So again, you've just got so much cross information and proofs. So basically, it's just, I'm overwhelmed by I liken him to a wild beast, let's say a man-eating tiger loose in a village. The tiger's not going to stop until he's either captured or killed. And George was never, he was captured on a couple of times, but because of politics and corruption, he was let loose, allowed to go free. But basically, he was never caught, was never captured, and kept killing. And I think his last one was probably the Paul Stein murder in '69, which was the cabbie. I think in '69, so he would have been 62. A lot of people look at me and say, oh, this is a daddy dearest thing and stuff. Couldn't be farther from the truth. I loved my father. And a lot of people, I was very reluctant to do Zodiac because I knew what would happen. It would be, okay, I buy that he solved Black Dahlia, but he's gone too far now. Zodiac, where's he going next? The grassy knoll in Dallas? I think that was kind of the thinking. Just there's no way they're going to even waste their time with this because it can't be possible. How could you have, it defies logic, and I understand that, but at the same time, once you go into that black hole, multiple black holes, then you see how it all fits together, and it's the real deal. I've got my reputation on the line, and there are a number of very high-profile people that totally support it. One of his letters, I spent a lot of my own money, and ultimately got his full DNA profile off a letter he sent me back in '71. He sent me this letter with a whole bunch of stamps on it and stuff. Anyway, I sent in a whole bunch of objects of his that I had, some of the things I had. First, mostly letters, but shoes and gloves, and ultimately they got the DNA profile. So I approached, and I've written, and here's one of the other problems on Zodiac. You've got at least five jurisdictions involved, and each one of them supposedly has DNA of some, unidentified DNA, unidentified fingerprints. To my knowledge, I don't know if, one of the problems you have with police departments is territoriality. Everybody's very guarded and protective. I want to be the one to solve this big case. So I don't think they're sharing their information with each other because we don't, to my knowledge, they don't have confirmed Zodiac DNA. In other words, the only way you're going to get confirmed DNA is if several of the departments match. They're the same DNA, then you can figure that's probably good. But just having DNA means nothing. That's no indication that it actually belongs to the killer. You've got the physical likeness, which is picture perfect. You've got the MO and the crime signatures. The strongest piece of evidence I have are the crime signature MOs and crime signatures. Normally, when you're looking at unsolved cases, especially on a serial killer, if you get 2 or 3 or 4 crime signatures that are similar, you're going to take a hard look at it. I've put together 32 crime signatures, comparing Black Dahlia to Zodiac. First of all, sending in taunting letters is very unusual. In my 300 cases, I never had not one that did that. It's very unusual. It may be usual in television, on television, but it's very unusual. So that alone is extremely distinctive. But sending letters to the victim's family, he did that in the Degnan case, and he did that in the Sherry Jo Bates case in Southern California. I'm also including her as one of those. So I've actually got 8 victims on Zodiac. You'll see all of that is strong indications of linkage. As I mentioned, you've got the Tim Holt red mask connection, which is, directly connects him to Tim Holt and George Odell to Tim Holt as a family friend back then. You've got the Spider Lady connections with Carol Foreman in his. He also writes a spider web on the Halloween card. You've got the handwriting, you've got the physical description, you've got all of this linkage. So, and then ultimately, of course, the only way we're going to actually be able to prove it is through DNA. You've got rope in the San Diego serial crimes. You've got one of the ropes they traced it. It was purchased in San Francisco, about 6 blocks from where Dad's office was when he was working for the Chronicle. So that's the one thing, is you've got a cross thing of so much. You've got a span of 50 crimes, 50 years, and the early ones connect to the later connect to the earlier. You've got his very first crime connects to the Zodiac crimes, in the sense of contacting the San Francisco Chronicle and words that he uses. I have a death machine. Who uses death machine? Zodiac uses it, and he used it in his early ones. A whole bunch of things that connect. So, but until they do DNA, if they ever do it, I see no interest. I don't know if there is ever going to be any movement. I just may have to be satisfied with my reading public. So I sent my summaries to all of the 5 agencies, and I said I'll be happy to come up on my dime, make a PowerPoint presentation as to why I believe he's Zodiac, and they all silence, crickets from everybody. And that's kind of where we're at. Again, I went as far as to print my dad's profile in the book and said, look, here it is, take a look, and again, I think they're, and most of them, of course, this has been, look how old it is. It's one of the oldest and coldest cases there is, but it's easily, I think I've put together a case that's, beyond reasonable doubt.